They say the cave still breathes. Not with wind, not with the earth shifting, but with something far older, far hungrier, as if every scream that once echoed inside its stone ribs never truly escaped. When archaeologists first stumbled on the site, deep in a volcanic ridge where even birds avoided the sky, they thought they had found nothing more than a forgotten shrine, a scattering of bones, charcoal, stone carvings eroded beyond sense. But the closer they looked, the more the cave seemed to resist being understood. Why were the bones charred only halfway, as if the flesh had been peeled away by heat too precise to be natural? Why were the skulls not resting with the bodies, but arranged in a circle, all facing a single point in the darkness? And why did the first man who entered whisper, before his torch sputtered out, that the wall seemed to pulse as if something inside was still alive? They never wrote that in the official report, but the others heard it too. You can almost picture them, dusty boots scraping against basalt, helmets fogging with their breath, the light trembling across carvings that should have been worn smooth by centuries, yet still burned into the stone like fresh wounds. The first carving they recognized was a fire, but not a fire like the sun, not the kind that gives warmth. It was jagged, violent, tongues of flame curling upward into the outline of a face. Not human, not animal. Something in between. The locals would not go near the cave, not even to collect the obsidian shards scattered around the entrance. When asked, they only repeated the same word, one that didn't survive translation well, something between the eater and the listener. As if the fire did not only consume, but waited, patient and attentive, for what was offered. Offerings. That was the word the archaeologists chose. But offerings of what? When they sifted through the ash, they found marrow that had been cracked open, flesh burned so quickly it fused a stone, and bones arranged in spirals, as if the victims had not simply been thrown into fire, but given to it in some sequence, like a recipe or a language. Have you noticed it yet? The unease creeping behind your eyes. Because if this was ritual, if this was worship, then someone was feeding something, and something was eating. They kept digging. Further inside, the cave opened into a chamber so black their lights seemed to retreat from it. The floor was uneven, as though the stone itself had been melted, then cooled into frozen waves. At the center was a pit, its edges lined with soot so thick it glistened under their lamps. But there was no wood, no evidence of torches or fuel. Just stone, burned over and over until it resembled glass. And then the most disturbing discovery. The pit was not deep, just shallow enough for a body to curl inside, or several. At first, they thought it was a tomb. But tombs are for the dead. And this place, every surface screamed of something alive, something fed. One of them, a woman named Dr. Herrera, pressed her palm against the wall and swore she felt warmth radiating back. Not from geothermal activity, not from trapped heat. She said it pulsed, like a heart. She laughed it off later, but her handprint remained blackened on the stone for days. By the third night, half the team refused to go back in. Imagine being there, standing at the cave mouth, hearing nothing but your own heartbeat, your own breath scraping inside your throat, and then realizing there's another rhythm slower, deeper, not matching your body at all. Would you still go inside? They did. And deeper in the shadows, they found something that didn't belong to any known civilization. A set of masks. Dozens of them, carved from bone and stone, each smeared with a red so ancient it should have faded, yet somehow still glistened as though wet. Every mask had hollow eyes, exaggerated mouths, some open in screams, some sealed shut, some broken where the teeth should have been. But one mask was different. It was larger, heavier, carved not from bone but from basalt itself, and the mouth was open so wide it seemed impossible for a human face to wear it. Inside the carved throat were grooves, sharp enough to cut skin, as if the mask itself demanded blood before it could be used. That night, Dr. Herrera disappeared. They searched the ravine, the brush, every trail back to camp. Nothing. No prints. No clothing. No sound of struggle. But when they returned to the chamber, the basalt mask was gone, and in its place was her glove, burned through. The team split after that. Some left the site entirely, terrified to spend another moment in the valley. The others, those who stayed, kept no journals, left no reports. But fragments of their recordings were found years later, hidden in the archives of a university that never claimed them. The voices are barely audible, but if you listen closely, you can hear the tremor. A man whispers, "It's not fire. Fire doesn't wait. Fire doesn't watch." Another voice cuts in, "Don't say it. Don't give it shape." And then silence. The tape ends with something faint, a sound you might mistake for wind rushing through stone. But listen longer, and it's wet, rhythmic, the sound of something breathing. Do you hear it too? What unsettles me most isn't what they found. It's what they didn't. No written record. No name for the god. No mythology outside the cave itself. Almost as if the worshippers wanted no trace of their devotion to survive. Or worse, someone made sure it didn't. And yet the cave still remains. A place where flesh was fed to fire. Where masks demanded blood. Where walls still pulse with heat no sun has touched. What was it they believed they were sustaining? A god aflame? A hunger given shape? Or something older? Something that only pretended to be fire, because fire was the only language humans could understand? The archaeologists never returned. The site was sealed, the records suppressed. But stories slip out. Locals still whisper of red light flickering against the cave walls at night, though no flame is ever seen. They say animals vanish near the ridge, and sometimes, on certain winds, you can smell charred flesh. Faint but unmistakable. You're wondering if it's just myth. If the mind invents fear where none belongs. But what if it isn't? What if hunger this old doesn't die, it only waits? And what if, by listening, by imagining, by picturing the pit, the masks, the warmth against your hand, you've already stepped inside? I shouldn't have told you this. But then again, maybe it wanted you to know. Because the last question isn't who fed flesh to the fire god. It's who still does. And tonight, when the lights flicker, when you hear that slow, wet rhythm in the silence, you'll have to ask yourself, is it already here?